For the health and efficiency of your office to know how to complete a patient's appointment on the day of their appointment as best you can. This video, I'm just going to quickly show you from start to finish completing a patient's appointment. In my example, I'm going to start with an appointment that's already scheduled on the calendar. First, the appointment need to be arrived. I can arrive the appointment by clicking on the drop-down arrow and click arrived, or you can use the check-in device, which a lot of offices use. On the check-in device, the patient would put in their phone number. They would confirm who they would like to check in, and then check in for their appointment. As we can tell on the calendar, my appointment is arrived. At this stage, the front desk can click and see the patient's snapshot, see if they want to collect when the patient first comes in, or if they want to collect at the end, if the patient's on monthly, any alerts that have been triggered. So it's a good idea for your front desk to check the patient's snapshot when they're arrived. The patient would then go back to their appointment area and see their provider. The provider would be in the appointment area and on one of the SOAP notes screen. So they could be on provider mode, patient mode, or patient chart. The arrival queue is broken up by provider. So the provider needs to make sure they are clicking on their appointment under their arrival queue. I'm going to click on the appointment. I am going to go to my SOAP notes area, create a SOAP note. Of course, your SOAP note may be more extensive. If I had default charges set up, they would appear here. As you can see in this message, there are no default charges set. It's important that not only you put in a SOAP note on the day of the appointment, but that you also add charges. You need to make sure you're counting in the patient's history with the SOAP note and on their ledger what services they received on that day. Depending on your office's workflow, the provider may add the charges via clicking into this box, or your front desk may add the charges, which I'll show in a second. I'm going to move forward with the example that I don't have default charges and that my front desk personnel is going to manually add in charges. If I were using default charges, when the provider submits their SOAP note on the same day as the appointment, those default charges will automatically apply to the patient's ledger. I'm going to submit SOAP note. Now I'm going to go back as if I am the front desk personnel. Here, the appointment is now green. That means it is in a treated status. This icon right here, if I hover over, tells me a SOAP note has been completed. And this symbol simply just means that the patient has been treated, meaning a provider has entered a SOAP note. Even though it's a dollar sign, that does not necessarily mean you have to collect from the patient. It is just saying they have been treated and you need to see if you need to collect. I'm always going to click onto the patient and just make sure their snapshot is showing that they've had charges in for the day. If I haven't had charges, then I would need to enter those. I can see any charges and appointment are here in green in the snapshot. So I can see that charges are here for the day. But let's say this is a situation where the front desk puts in charges and not the doctor. I can click onto this preview of the ledger and it'll take me right to the ledger. And then I can click on new transaction. And then here in the search box, add any services or inventory items that the patient received. If I'm on the patient snapshot, I can click on this transaction icon, which will also take me to the same mobile to add charges and or payments. Also, part of checking out the patient is determining whether or not I need to take payment. Some patients may pay per visit, some may pay on a monthly plan or prepay. So a patient may not always pay at every visit, but I need to make sure as a front desk I'm verifying if they owe or not at that appointment. The blue patient's notes box is a great place to indicate what kind of payment plan that patient is on, whether they're paying per visit, monthly, so on and so forth. So for here on this patient, I put that I need to collect $45. You can even change the color of the notes box if you would like to maybe signify to your staff to make sure to collect per visit. And it's a great visual indicator to help determine whether you need to collect from that patient on that visit. To initiate a payment, you're going to click on the transaction button, click on payment. If you're using one of our integrated merchant services, that will automatically pop up here. If you are not, you will have to select what type of payment you're about to run. I'm going to type in the amount that the patient owes, and I can select if I want to complete this appointment. Only complete an appointment when there is an appointment on the calendar, charges have been entered for the day, and a SOAP note has been entered for the day. On the transaction modal, I selected to complete the appointment, which will make my appointment grayed out. If I hover over it, I can see the original information of the appointment, but if I'm just looking at the calendar, I can see it's grayed out, indicating it's a completed appointment. You can also complete an appointment via the drop-down arrow and hit completed. CareHD does have an autocomplete feature. To enable this, you will need to go to Settings, Office, Office Configuration, Autocomplete Appointments. We do have individual resources going over how to complete appointments, autocomplete, so please reference those. The last thing I want to do as a front desk is make sure my patient is scheduled for a future appointment. So I can scroll down here in the patient snapshot. So if I scroll up, I can see this patient has future appointments. If I scrolled up and there were no future appointments, I would need to make sure to schedule that patient to ensure that they keep coming in. To reiterate, it's very important that you complete a patient's appointment from start to finish on the day of their appointment. That includes an appointment being scheduled, an appointment being arrived, a SOAP note being entered, and services being entered as well.